Claude just hit 96.5% on complex physics problems, and Gemini doesn't have a published score anywhere close to that. If you're picking the wrong tool for deep reasoning work, you're leaving serious accuracy on the table. Both tools are moving fast right now, so I went through 12 sources, pulled only the numbers each company will actually stand behind, and scored Claude versus Gemini across 5 tests. Every claim here traces back to a specific, verified source. And the tool that wins on raw reasoning loses somewhere else in a way that could actually cost you money at scale. So I'm not going to be able to tell you which one until we get to the pricing test, because that's where the decision really flips. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. I've gone through every benchmark both Anthropic and Google will actually stand behind. And I'm only scoring where the evidence is real. You've probably heard both tools are great at everything, and yeah, that's kind of the problem. If you're a developer running 500 API calls a day, or a researcher feeding in 300-page documents, the wrong pick doesn't just feel bad. It slows you down or costs you real money. Test 1. Reasoning accuracy. The day your AI model gives you a wrong answer on a complex math or physics problem, and you don't catch it, that error ships. For anyone doing technical work, research, engineering, financial modeling, a 5% error rate isn't acceptable. So which one actually gets it right? So I looked at the verified numbers, and Claude 3.7 Sonnet with extended thinking mode hits 96.5% on complex physics problems and 96.2% on Math 500. What surprised me is that Gemini has a new deep think mode, but I couldn't find a single published benchmark score for it, nothing to compare directly. Claude takes this one, 96.5%. Gemini's deep think mode didn't put up a single number I could stack against it, so Claude wins by default on verified data alone. That's 1 for Claude, 0 for Gemini on the scoreboard. Test 2. Context window. Say you're a legal analyst trying to feed a 500-page contract into an AI model and it just cuts off halfway through. You're missing clauses, missing risk, and potentially making a call based on incomplete data. Token limits matter a lot. What I found here is a pretty clear gap. Gemini goes up to 2 million tokens on Gemini 1.5 Pro, and a lot of their models sit at 1 million. Claude's max is 1 million on Opus 5 and Sonnet 5 paid plans, but the standard Pro plan is 200K, and Claude charges 2x input pricing after that 200K threshold. Gemini wins this one on raw capacity. 2 million versus 1 million tokens is a real difference, and Claude's 2x pricing after 200K makes large document work noticeably more expensive. That ties it up. Claude 1, Gemini 1. Test 3. Code generation and debugging. 62.3%, that's the SWE bench verified score we're working with here. If your coding tool is failing on roughly 4 in 10 real software engineering tasks, you're spending hours cleaning up what it gets wrong instead of shipping. That's the real cost, so I looked at the benchmark data, and Claude 3.7 Sonnet scores 62.3% on SWE bench verified. That jumps to 70.3% with a custom scaffold. On TAU bench retail, it hits 81.2%. Gemini has Code Assist as an IDE plugin, but I couldn't track down a published SWE bench or TAU bench number for it anywhere. Claude takes coding too, and what's interesting is it's not just the benchmark numbers. Claude Code is a full autonomous coding agent, while Gemini Code Assist is an IDE plugin, which is a pretty different thing. That puts Claude ahead 2-1, with 2 tests still to go. 2 tests left, speed and pricing, and this is where it gets genuinely complicated, because the data gets thin fast and the answer stops being clean. If you're making a cost decision at scale, you really want to stick around for the pricing test, because the numbers there are kind of wild. Test 4, response latency and speed. 300 to 800 milliseconds per tool call, that's what Claude Code is running at. If you're literally hammering it with 1,000 automated calls in a pipeline, those delays stack up fast and your whole workflow slows to a crawl, and at that point, the latency starts eating directly into your throughput. What surprised me here is how thin the data actually is. Claude Haiku 4.5 is their fastest model, and Claude Code tool calls run 300 to 800 milliseconds each. Gemini 2.0 has a 30-second Python sandbox for code execution, which is a genuinely different capability. But I couldn't locate a published latency figure for Gemini to put side by side. The gap here is also smaller than it looks, because these are really different test setups. Claude's 300 to 800 hours figure is specifically for tool calls inside Claude code, not general API response time. Gemini's speed advantage is real in practice according to users, but it's kind of a feel thing without hard numbers to back it up. No winner here. I can't call it without comparable numbers on both sides, so this one's a tie. Score stays Claude 2, Gemini 1 with 1 tied. Test 5, pricing per token and cost efficiency. A solo dev running a document processing pipeline hits Claude's 200k token threshold and suddenly their input costs double. 2x input, 1.5x output. Right there in the docs. That's not a rounding error, that's a budget conversation you weren't planning to have. So I went looking for per token rates for both, and I couldn't find published per token rates for either Claude or Gemini's standard API. What I do know is Claude charges 2x input and 1.5x output after 200k tokens. That's in their docs. For Gemini, I couldn't turn up a comparable, long context pricing figure anywhere. Another tie. Neither company makes this easy, and you can't do a real cost comparison without per token rates on both sides. Score ends at Claude 2, Gemini 1, 2 tied. Alright, so where does Claude clearly win? Reasoning accuracy, 96.5% on complex physics, 96.2% on Math 500, both verified. Code generation, 62.3% on SWE bench, 81.2% on TAU bench retail, and Claude Code is a full autonomous agent, not just a plugin sitting inside your IDE. And where does Gemini clearly win? Context window, up to 2 million tokens on Gemini 1.5 Pro, which is double Claude's max. Speed is faster in practice, even without a hard published number. And Gemini 2.0 has a 30-second Python sandbox for code execution that Claude just doesn't have. Okay, so here's the decision rule. If you're doing deep reasoning, complex math, or running a coding agent, go Claude. That 96.5% physics accuracy is real and verified. If you need to process massive documents fast and want the bigger context window, go Gemini. 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 ties. Pick the tool that fits the job. I ran Claude up against GPT-4o next, and the reasoning gap actually shrinks to under 2 percentage points on the math benchmark, which changes the whole cost per accuracy calculation pretty dramatically. That comparison is already on the channel if you want to see where the numbers actually land.